Wordle. Now,
Yes.
I came in a little late, but I did get into it. But then right when I got into it and started sharing my progress, people were like, sharing your progress in Wordle is gauche. So, but then people still do it, but it seems like maybe you don't do it unless you get it in like 3 or under. Like, is there Wordle etiquette that exists, and what is it?
When you share you're not like screenshotting. You haven't screen
No.
shared.
No, it gives you the option to share.
It gives you the option to share, and people take it.
Well, I mean, I think that is acceptable Wordle etiquette so far. So you're being told that you're sharing too often?
No, I've just seen other people on Twitter like complaining about it, and I, don't want to be a part of the problem. So I also like, it almost always takes me 4 or 5 guesses to get the words. So I think I've gotten a 3 once, but yeah, I don't know. I don't want to be one of those guys who's like erroneously sharing his Wordle scores on Twitter. I do enough dumb shit.
Yeah, we don't want to be like Wordle whores.
Yeah. Listen,
Wordle,
Twitter is an important resource of information for a lot of people. I don't want to be filling up people's feeds with
green and yellow boxes.
Skylar got the Wordle in 5 guesses. It was like,
I don't think you have to worry about that. Like every morning when I scroll through Twitter, there are just so many green and yellow boxes all throughout. I mean, I don't know what the etiquette is. I think if you're that guy who's like always getting it in like 1 or 2, just like shut the fuck up,
Oh,
like,
so that's the etiquette. Don't be a look at me
guy.
Person all the
time.
To
me, that's the only time you share it though.
Yeah, see, that's kind of how I feel about it too. But also, like, if you always get Wordle in 1 guess or like 2 guesses, you should be like working for, I don't know, like NASA or something. That doesn't make any fucking sense.
I guess, yeah, getting it in 1 is not. Getting it in 2 is a thing that has happened.
If you get it in 1 every time, then like you need to go work on the X-Files or something like that, I think.
Yeah, it just means that you've been doing incognito mode every day and then switching over.
What?
Yeah.
It just means that you are 100% a liar who lies.
Yes,
people do that fat shit. Liar. Do you think that there are people who do that, but then they're like, if I just get it in 1 all the time, everybody will know what I'm doing. So they intentionally do like 3 to like throw people off the scent, to be like, I'm smart, but not like go work at the X-Files smart.
Okay, so I 100% now I'm like, there's this one person and I think like potentially this is their vibe, and now I'm gonna watch them.
Are you talking about the B reporter?
Way close. No.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about someone who's like not involved in any circle. From like,
she got it in 2 days in a row, and I don't know about that. There was another journalist who was like, "You're a witch."
I have definitely gotten the word in 2 more than 1 time in a row.
What?
And I'm not like, I think I'm just someone who spends a lot of time like looking at reading words.
Getting it in 2 requires a lot of luck.
Okay, let me ask you this. What is your first go-to Wordle word?
Depends. First word is whatever for me. Like whatever I'm feeling. As long as no letters are the same.
Today. And you know how long it took me to get that fucking word?
So you guys don't have a go-to
So you got
word?
1 letter correct, and it was the 5th letter.
Yeah, I got it in 4 today.
Yeah.
See, I've been doing, my first guess is always Ouija, because you can get 4 vowels in the first word. And if, so it kind of, because I feel like the vowels kind of shape where you go. So I figure, and even though J is kind of a dumb one, you still get all 4 vowels, or every vowel except E in your first guess. So that seemed like a good strategy for me.
Wait. Ouija, right?
No. Ouija.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. I don't want to overthink the first word though. So I like to switch it up. And if it's 5 misses, that means you're down to 21 letters, which like means you're that much closer anyway.
That's a very optimistic way to play Wordle.
I do pretty well.
This is also very on brand for Kempa.
It is
like, if you do it this, then it's like, what is that? Sweet Summer Child.
Yeah.
If I honestly, I'll tell you this: if I played the first word in Wordle and didn't get any of them, it would probably ruin the whole rest of my day. That I would be like, well, this is just going to be a fucking shitty day. God damn it.
Well, one of our dedicated listeners today, one of the first tweets I saw this morning was, I didn't get Wordle today, and like everything is terrible or something.
This is
like
how
that.
I go.
I know who you're talking about, and also I find it hard to believe it cannot be a coincidence that happened on the same day as this fucking CalCare shit.
Oh yeah. Shoot!
You put some juju on that. You know who you are. You put the Wordle juju on.
Okay, well now you just put that on her, and you know what we're gonna hear tomorrow when she listens to this episode. We're all gonna get lit up.
All right, I'm thinking of a word, and it's 5 letters.
Oh, I know.
What?
It's wheel.
No.
This is gonna be the episode. Okay, is it Ouija?
No.
I'm thinking of a word and it's 5 letters.
But
beast?
It's begin, as in, shall we begin the show?
Is it spunt?
It was spunt. Oh, it should have been spunt.
Yes.
Oh, that one goes out to Flo.
All right.
Only the real ones know about that.
All right. Skylar got it. Skylar got the Wordle.
Skylar wins.
All right. Let's begin.
Let's do it.
Voices, the things they said. Voices, some from those dead. All the voices heard. Voices, things we say. Voices, they're in your head. All the voices heard.
Hello, everyone. You have a Kempa.
And you have Skylar.
And also Shannon.
What a trio. Really historic.
Yeah.
The historic trio.
Yep. We are, however, missing Dr. Flo, who is, of course, chairing the Measure U committee, trying to help determine where our city tax dollars go. Really doing the Lord's work. But we will have Flo back next week. She actually did call in sick this time. Well, sick, call in this time.
She called in working.
Yeah, she called in doing a meeting.
She had a prior engagement.
She called in. I'm the most important person on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, exactly. Fine.
Whatever.
Flo. So what we're covering today. I can feel it.
This show is gonna
be a good one.
It's already just like running into a brick wall.
Okay, so we're going to talk about a number of things happening, I believe, at the state level today, and possibly discussing something that's happening in San Francisco, which is really a state issue as well. I would like to begin with a discussion on AB 1400. This was CalCare, right? This was basically the Affordable Care Act for California that would have brought single payer insurance to California. It would have saved countless California lives, particularly, during this pandemic. And it would have saved many, many people a whole lot of money, but instead the insurance companies won. Now, does anyone want to give a background on this, or should I just run through it real quick?
I say dive in, man.
Okay.
So
this is something that progressives in California have been fighting for a while. They tried to get it through in 2017. It died. They tried to get it through this year again, and astoundingly, it made it through. It was presented by Assemblymember Ash Kalra. It astoundingly made it through the Assembly Health Committee. It then went to Assembly Appropriations. Appropriations is where bills go to die when Democrats don't want to vote on them because they don't want people to know that they are paid by all the bad people who don't want this bill to exist. It passed the Appropriations Committee. Not only that, the Appropriations Committee of the Assembly of California said, oh no, this bill is going to save people a lot of money. And yeah, so we have no issue with that. Appropriations is all about money and if it's going to save or cost us money and how much, if so. That blew people's minds. And then it went to the assembly floor. And then we were waiting, thinking like, oh my God, we're going to see of our 80 assembly members here in the lower chamber of California's legislature, we're actually going to have on record who supports single payer and who does not. Even if it doesn't passes.
Like I was going to say, best case scenario, we're on the road to get single payer healthcare. Worst case scenario, we know who the bastards are.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Best case scenario, it passes the assembly floor and then it goes to the Senate. It goes through the same process. But really, even if it didn't pass the assembly today, at least we would have had a mapping of who really the progressive should be attacking, right?
Right.
And not only that, not only that, the California Democratic Party's Progressive Caucus actually said, if you are an assembly member who votes against this, we have the votes within the party to make sure that you do not get a party endorsement in your election this year. In the assembly, everybody runs for office every 2 years. That means everybody of those 80 people, 60 of them are Democrats. Of those 60 Democrats, if you voted against this, they can make it so you don't get state party money in your election. Now, if you are in a swing district where it's you against like a Republican, the Democrats and Republicans kind of share power in that district, that can be hard for you. B, if you're in a district where it's deep, 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 deep blue and you vote against it, now you have a potential progressive running against you who actually does believe in healthcare for all, right? So this was like a really big thing, really big moment. And today on Monday, January 31st, as we record, Ash Kalra, who presented the bill, decided not to even put it to the floor for a vote. And people have a lot of questions.
Yeah, in a stunning act of cowardice. like it's so disappointing. I mean, I don't know. Like it is disappointing. It sucks. It's disappointing. Like there's part of me that's like, I'm like mad that I'm disappointed, because like they're like, I hate it. I feel like fucking Charlie Brown like whiffing on the football. And I let him do it to me. I let him get me where I was like, maybe something cool will happen. Maybe like the will of the people will prevail in like the bluest state in the goddamn country. But of course it didn't. Of course it didn't happen. And like, I don't know. I'm mad at myself for letting them fucking wind me up again,
Once more, the California Democrats are the Lucy to the people's Charlie Brown.
I mean, I think like the thing, and I'm laughing, it's deeply upsetting, and I think one of the reasons that it is so upsetting is like there are so many people who are like, none of this shit matters. I'm going to completely disengage and just live my life and expect things to be terrible. And those expectations are likely to be met. I don't want to get involved in this process. I don't want to think about this shit. I'll just, work my job and move into a smaller apartment every year until I die on my feet at work. And the thing that sucks about stuff like this today is that like it validates that mindset. Like all of those people who were like, dude, this is like such a fucking like nonsense shit show. None of it matters. Like the die is already cast. this is a strong argument in that favor. And we're in a position where like we need people to be engaged. We need people to care. But like, how are you going to keep people engaged when like this is always how it goes?
Yeah.
Like how, if anybody, if like any like anti-electoralist is going to like, you know, start arguing with me about electoralism right now, I feel like I don't really have anything to say back to them. Like, I mean, yeah.
There was an interesting conversation on Twitter among a number of the progressive real ones. I think I saw Alfred Tu. I saw Allison, friend of the show, housing advocate, and Brandon Harami, discussing how we can't rely on this to go through the legislature. It has to be almost just like a ballot measure to the people, right? That's how we do it. Signature campaign, bring it to the people.
Sure, yeah.
Because the insurance companies, Gavin Newsom's friends up there at the Capitol, they're going to find a way. They're going to find a way to stop it.
Well, it's like we just have it's piece of evidence after piece of evidence that elected Dems, the Dems are just like, they're going head to head with each other, right? Like they're unwilling. There's so much disorganization within the party that they can't like align themselves for any fucking issue except for money. So if we want actually for change to take place so that people are taken care of, like I think it's right, like that ballot measures are the way to go, because then that's movement oriented, right? Because you can like get out in the streets, knock on doors, like we can organize around that. But you can't organize around a bunch of fucking asshats on the assembly floor who don't actually give a fucking shit about what happens to your healthcare bill.
We are giving Mickey so much work on this episode.
Sorry,
like 15
man.
minutes today. No, I'm enjoying it. But you know what? I think that's true, Shannon. I think we should also take a moment and say there are real ones within the party, and
yes,
that there is organization on the progressive end of it. There is also, unfortunately, organization on the centrist, the conservative end of the party. The problem is it's just such a big umbrella that it just blots out the fucking sun. It means nothing. It's so big that it means there's no common message or common vision, because the progressives don't belong with these people on, you know, the mod side that are trying to kill these bills.
Mods are conservatives. There is like, there is literally, there's no difference. They are conservatives. There is functionally, there is absolutely zero difference between a mod Democrat being like, it's just not the pragmatic time to shake up the whole healthcare system. There's no difference between that guy and like, you know, some Kentucky senator somewhere being like, healthcare for brown people. I don't think so. Not on my watch. Functionally, those two ideologies have the exact same fucking
effect.
Outcome.
Yeah.
Like the outcome is literally the same. It does not matter. Like the rhetoric, the rhetoric is nonsense. None of it means anything. All that matters is the outcome. And the outcome is exactly the same with conservative Democrats as it is with conservative Republicans in other states. It's just
your material conditions are just as bad when either of those two are in leadership.
Yes. Totally. And they have different ways of delivering the message, but it will be the same message every time. Every time.
I think one of the things that is disappointing about this, outside of watching it just fucking crumble, is that as you said, the real ones within the party who do so much work to make sure that something like AB 1400 gets pushed, you know, closer and closer and closer to actually getting to a space where we can vote on it. Like those folks all put in so much time, so much energy. And like, I think about what like their emotional state must be today, like as they watched this thing that could, this thing could save lives. This bill could have saved lives. And a lot of people worked hard on that. And it just really, really fucking sucks. Like, it's, and
I guess,
like, we're talking about our disappointment at watching it fall. And like, really all I did was tweet about it. And that disappointment is real. I'm not trying to like minimize, that the disappointment that we're all feeling isn't a thing. But for folks who were like losing sleep, making phone calls, doing the work,
like, folks I know that are with the California nurses that day in and day out fought for this. And I think we should have a real conversation about Ash Kalra. Why on earth would he not bring this to a vote on the assembly floor?
Like, is there a reason other than cowardice that is possible?
I don't know. I would think that it's probably him bending to the will of party leadership, the conservative party leadership of Gavin Newsom.
Well, you know what Gavin Newsom
Nancy
did
Pelosi's.
Not want to happen was for that bill to make it to his desk. And now he doesn't have to worry about it.
No, he didn't. Exactly.
There has to be some sort of like, I want to do the whole like detective wall, not detective wall, but like the wall with the string and the whole thing where you like lay
the Charlie
out.
Kelly.
Yeah, where you're just like, yes, where you're like laying out the relationships, because I like how much of it just has to do with wanting to make sure that these relationships that are rooted in the interest of capital don't get fucked as a result of however this vote was going to turn out, because who's going to get money and who's not, like who's going to be asked out by the party and who isn't. That I feel like it has to come down to something like that.
Well, when it was leaked last week that friend of the show, Amar Shergill, and the California Progressive Caucus of the Democratic Party were considering anyone voting against this will not get a Democratic Party endorsement. And, I think the leaking of that actually is probably what led to killing this bill, possibly. I think that could be something, because once that came out, suddenly Ash is like, got all of these mods running to him saying, oh my God, you can't put this to the floor. I need the endorsement. We're going to lose all these Democratic seats. They're not going to lose all these Democratic seats. They have 60 out of 80. You need 2/3 of the legislature to have a supermajority. Democrats were going to be fine. But as long as progressives play nice, as long as progressives consider themselves on the same team as these mods, people's material conditions are not going to get better. So, as Amar and his folks regroup, I think they are, and I hope they are. I think they're really, hopefully considering going for the jugular on this, really, really calling out who is to blame for this, who within the party, because there needs to be a fight. This fight needs to happen. And some of these people need to go down.
What do you think? Just like, this is a completely kind of maybe a random tangent. But seeing as how there's basically, we're like one party rule here in California, right? And like people, a lot of people can't really see the difference between a moderate Democrat and a progressive, even though it's a huge gulf. Do you think that like that adopting or trying to start some sort of a third party is a strategic move here that would work well for California specifically?
It's hard because it costs a lot of money to start a new party. It also takes a lot of time to rally people behind your brand, who you are and what you stand for. It takes time to make people understand that. what I think they should do, and what I think people are doing, I think the progs are already doing it, is creating their own banners under the Democratic flag. So they have the same D under their name, next to their name on ballots as the other Democrat. And so that is fully neutralized. So then the voter has to determine, okay, what makes these two folks different and why would I like them more? What I think they need to do, progressives, is start to brand themselves separately, but within the party, right? So like, I don't know what that looks like, but it's like, you know, a coalition of people with D next to their names who are with the Progressive Caucus, who are with Sunrise, who are aligned with DSA, who are aligned with the Movement for Black Lives, right? Who are aligned with the people's budgets in our major cities. If you look at who's working on the LA people's budget and the Sacramento people's budget, those are the real ones. Those are the real groups that are in full solidarity with one another. And if they start forming an alliance that has a name to it, a color to it that's different than a Democratic Party, but it functions under the Democratic Party sort of banner, I think that's a good first step towards something like that, towards even a new party 10 years down the line.
Hasn't this exact playbook already been run and failed nationally, though, by the Bernie Sanders campaign?
I don't think so, because I don't think they, like, what was the separate branding necessarily?
He ran as the anti-corporate, I'm the socialist guy. He had the Sunrise people, he had DSA, he like,
yeah,
but
the brand was Bernie though, right? Like the brand was a person. It can't be a person.
What I'm saying is that he set himself apart from the pack,
yeah,
and kind of did the thing, and he did really, really well. But as soon as the Democratic Party was like, okay, that's enough, Bernie, go away, they were able to make him go away, like without really too much fanfare even.
Really? Like, I think he has created an entire movement, and there are legislators on our national, state, and local levels that would not be in legislative positions, that would not have the word socialist next to their name while being in these positions, that can today because of him, as a direct result of his push. So I think it's just a step forward now. I think the brand was Bernie during that time. And like, I think we have to think more strategically about like what our alliances are, what our points are, and like how we support one another, how we're actually like in solidarity with one another, right? How labor supports the Movement for Black Lives, supports the movement for climate justice, you know, all of these different things cobbled together supports single payer healthcare. Because I think they are all aligned in their own ways, but it's a very loose way of doing it right now, if that makes sense.
I'll take it.
Okay. I mean, this is something that like we haven't done yet. I don't think we've done like, here's what our alliance looks like, other than really what the folks at the People's Budget are doing. And if you look at the rainbow of organizations under a People's Budget, that is so exciting. Like, that is so cool. There is nothing exciting to me about a name like the People's Budget, though. And so like, I don't know, like, and like, it's good for the purpose of like, you know, this is what we're doing, the People's Budget. But like, if we're talking about electoral spaces and name recognition for your average person, you might want to rethink that and find a way to make it more pithy, more able to remember, you know, something like that.
Shots fired, People's Budget.
It's like the best people we know too.
We're gonna hear it from our listeners tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. We always do. Yeah, I don't know. I think I guess all of that is to say that I think there's potential. But like, it also sounds very dumb to say like, we need to rebrand, right? Like, it's a very dumb thing to say. So like, I don't know. But like, we need to create something that's like recognizable, that's separate from D Democrat, for folks who are paying a little bit more attention than your average voter. And start letting them know that this is the group that will work to improve your material status. what you're going through right now does not have to be this way.
That's a good TED Talk.
Yeah. Someone's got to do it. Probably not me. So I guess that what I hope happens moving on from this is that someone does some work on who the bastards are. I think back to 2017 during the Democratic Party's state convention, when a bunch of young folks, Bernie folks actually, were marching through the Democratic convention. Darrell Steinberg, our current mayor, was giving a little speech, and they were marching through fighting for single payer health care. And the head of the Democratic Party, chair of the party, John Burton, ran up to the dais while they were disrupting Dare Bear's speech, pushed him aside, and yelled at them to either go outside or shut the fuck up. And 2 days later, John Burton did the same thing to the California nurses. Shut the fuck up, right? And I think this is the party doing the same thing again. It's the party establishment doing the same thing again. And I think people do have to ask, what is our next move? Because they're not on our side.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm like, I should stop talking about this because I am so pessimistic about where we go from here. Like, I feel like unless people I don't know. The reason I brought up the third party thing is because I feel like this is just like every time anything like this happens, I'm like, how long are we going to play this game with the mods? Like, when is it time to just be like, you know what? I'm going to take my ball and go over here. And if that means we just get Republicans for as long as it takes you guys to figure out this isn't working anymore, then okay. I don't want that, but I also don't want this. So, I don't know.
I think a new party is a reasonable idea. I think it's very expensive. And every state, and even on our national level, they've made it nearly impossible to create viable third parties. That's the reason that I'm speaking for it under the Democratic umbrella. It's something surreptitious, and it's something that I think is viable. And it's something that I think I've shared this article by, I think it was Drew McGarry, who discussed sort of like what we could possibly do under the American system, where we have laws in place that like really demand two-party rule. Thankfully, in California, we have a top two voting system. So it's like Democrat can run against Democrat and nobody could know what the hell's going on. Right. That's like a huge piece of potential for us that no other state has.
But that also means that conservatives can just run as Democrats and do what they're doing now.
Yeah, but they won't. They can try, but they won't.
I think they already are.
Oh, you mean like mod Dems? Yeah. Well, good. I mean, it's what's happening in California since we created the top two primary is that we're rendering political parties obsolete. It means nothing. But what needs to happen is within the Democratic Party, which is the party that rules everything now, they have to start to understand that we're not all on the same team.
Why would they feel like they have to understand that though? Because every time it comes up like this, and every time we even get sort of
because the frogs keep getting whipped.
They put the kibosh on it, and they never suffer. There's never any consequences for it.
Because the progs keep getting whipped over and over again, right? But on a local level, you do have people such as Katie Valenzuela, such as you have people on the local level in all these different cities who are gaining power now, right? And these are people who do not have the same principles and the same ideals as other people within the party. And not only is the water getting muddied on what it means to be a Democrat, there is also a lingering question and a growing question, particularly as these people start to get in higher office, right? There's a couple of DSA members who made it into the state legislature, or at least one, Alex Lee. And it's like, they are showing day in and day out that, hey, I am here for real rent control. I am here for universal health care single payer, right? And little by little, they are gaining their power. And I think we should keep in mind that we are in the most grotesquely capitalist society in the history of the planet. And what we've done in the course of 4 years, I think is kind of astounding.
I don't think I'm as astounded by it as you are.
I think that's fair.
Surprise, surprise.
No, I'm all for crushing the whole thing too, if we have to. Yeah. But like, if we're looking at it today, it's just like, you know, it has moved faster than I've ever expected it to. I don't know what happens next though. Like, you know, it looks like this is dead. So when does California look at another single payer potentially system, right? And nope, I don't know the answer to that. This is the day of it dying today.
It'll probably be far enough away to where I'll be like, maybe this will be the time. And then when it fails, I'll be like, man, I let him do it to me again.
Like, we're all laying on our backs and the football is
exactly. Like, yeah, I mean, that I think that's why when you're like, well, what's our next step? I'm like, well, I mean, the next step is to do the exact same things over again and get the exact same results. That's always been the next step. Yeah, that is going to be, that's the next step in 2024, 2028, 2032, all the way down the line.
Looking forward to next cycle, folks. Hope you're as hopeful as I am.
I also hope that people are as hopeful as you are. I hate my attitude. It's a bad attitude. I do have it, unfortunately.
I think we just need to continue naming and shaming the folks, because I think they've been able to do it behind closed doors for too long. So I hope what they're doing at the progressive meeting tonight, as we're doing this episode, is outlining who the bastards are and outlining who they will not be allowing to take state party money. We'll see if they actually do that.
I love to think about that. So I hope that is what's happening.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do, because these Democrats are not fighting for Californians. Whoever it is who allowed it to die at the assembly floor.
Whack.
I guess we should move on. Why don't we discuss?
Oh, you mean to the next really cool thing we're going to talk about?
Some really great stuff. Speaking of electoralism, which we all believe in.
We haven't mentioned COVID once yet, though. So that's
true. That's good. Yeah. Not even during that healthcare discussion.
Well, I got my PCR back and it's negative. So
that's good. We've got some elections coming up, as most of you probably know, because Dan Walters wrote about it in Cal Matters, and literally every publication in the state picked it up.
Literally.
The first thing we're looking at is the fact that Democrats are really in no danger of losing much ground in California, particularly at like state legislature level. They have the super duper majority. They've got 75% of both houses of both chambers of the legislature. They have every state elected role statewide. Obviously, Gavin Newsom crushed his recall and Republicans are fully vanquished. I know that Jessica Millan Patterson went on Fox 40 the other day saying like, no, Republicans are raring to go in California. We're going to take on the Democrats. We're going to boom and boom. But that's not going to happen. They're out of money. No business is putting any money into any of their races because they know that California GOP has no power. So again, these businesses are putting their money towards moderate Democrats, right? That was a scare quote. And it's the situation we're in today, right?
Imagine how that's going to go.
Yeah. That's how bills die in appropriations, right? That's how they don't hit the assembly floor. And that's our current reality. So Newsom will not be facing any real challenger. Actually, 6 weeks out from the deadline to run against him, there's no Republican who's put their name in the hat. So there
what about that crazy bear guy? Didn't he say he was going to do it? The guy who did all the ads with the bears?
If he is, he hasn't filed yet.
No.
Yeah. So what we're looking at are a couple of interesting races. One of them being, I guess, first of all, there is a Dem on Dem race, and those are always interesting to look at. Speaking of Dem on Dem races, follow folks like Alfred Twu. Alfred has listed all of the hardcore progressives within the party that are running for the state legislature throughout the state. And if you follow them and check out kind of the thread they wrote on that, you might get a good look at who is actually worth your time, who is actually worth your money to contribute to their cause, to knock on doors for them. Do they have Marxist ideals or not? I think it's worthwhile to take a look at those folks. And I think that the left, given where it is, it should be discerning because we do not have enough collective power yet, right? Organize, but at the same time, be realistic about what we do have today. But there is an interesting statewide Democratic Party race, which is the state commissioner. That's the incumbent is this guy named Ricardo Lara. He was a state legislator for a while. He's running against Mark Levine, who I believe is a current, is he assembly member? I think so. Mm-hmm. And Levine, as state commissioner, you're kind of dealing with all of the different insurances throughout the state. And Lara got in trouble like right when he took the gig for taking a bunch of money from all of the people he should be regulating.
Love that.
Yeah.
I think one of my all-time favorite things about politics in America is that you can just do that.
You can just do that.
Like you can be like, yeah, you can. Yeah, it blows my mind. I love it. I love that we're there and that everybody knows it and that nobody can do anything about it. And that like open corruption is just part of the process.
It's like, are you down with open corruption? Because that is required.
Well, we better get down with it because that's how we do it here.
You better get real fucking comfortable with open corruption.
Yeah. So there's a group called Consumer Watchdog that called that out. Consumer Watchdog was part of the push to create this position as an elected position. And then suddenly they noticed once Lara got elected, like, oh, he's taking all the money from the people that we think we should be, who should be regulated by this stuff, right? So I think that's an interesting race. I don't consider Levine terribly progressive either, but like maybe don't knock on doors for him, but it might be worthwhile to vote for the guy who's not taking money from like, the home insurance companies that should be doing the right thing when it comes to home insurance for fires, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Next race. I think you've heard of this one, the Attorney General's race. So Rob Bonta is our current Attorney General. Rob Bonta is a former Assembly member. Again, I think Assembly member. I always get it mixed up with Senator, but I think he was. He was fingered by Newsom for this position to...
I like how you left a pause there in case anybody wanted to jump in there about that phrasing.
It's like when Flo last week mentioned that a city council member should be grooming someone. When she said it and I didn't like comment on it, but I was like, that's like when I say finger.
I don't think that it's like that.
I don't know. I would say
are grooming and fingering two different things?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Like if you're at the zoo and there's like two monkeys grooming each other, you're like, oh, what a sweet time that these monkeys are having. But if you're at the zoo, that's a different trip to the zoo.
Two monkeys fingering each other, then it's yeah.
And that is something that you might see if you're at the zoo.
What if one monkey is fingering another monkey to become the Attorney General of the state of California?
Of the zoo.
Yeah, of the zoo. Yeah. Just
we need a new attorney general around here.
This is the new attorney general of the zoo. It's not like fingering. Anyway, so our former attorney general.
I know it's hard to come back from that.
It is.
Fingering.
Has been fingered by the president to become the new director of health.
Wouldn't be the first.
Okay.
From what I hear.
So here's what's happening.
I'm just going to keep being over here.
Oh my God. Okay. I'm talking about Xavier Becerra, who was picked by Joe Biden, the president of the great United States of America, to become the next United States Secretary of Health and Human Services. Now,
hence the fingering.
Whether or not Becerra is doing his job correctly, and there are stories in the Washington Post saying that everyone in the White House thinks he should not have this job anymore, he was pulled from this job, the Attorney General's job, which left an opening there for a finger. And so Governor Newsom picked Bonta for this position, which Bonta has held for a year or so. So this is an appointed position, but this is an elected office. So now Bonta has to defend it. Bonta is considered to be among the more progressive folks as far as criminal justice goes in our state, sort of more alongside your Chisa Boudin or your Dinah Becton or LA County's district attorney, right? And less so alongside of the Democrats that are a little more tough on crime. So he's sort of running on that sort of tilt. He's got challengers, and one of the major challengers is a Sacramento favorite, being our dear friend of the show, Anne Marie Schubert, District Attorney of Sacramento County.
Gross.
So what are some thoughts on Anne Marie Schubert? Does she have a chance? Kind of what's her history? What do we got here?
I mean, does she have a chance? Unfortunately, I do think that she has a chance. I mean, her history is that she's like the I'm gonna end all the crime person, but she is never going to bring charges to any officers that happen to kill people. For people who are listening in Sacramento, we're all very familiar with the Stephon Clark killing. And
for folks who aren't, Stephon Clark was a teenager who was running from the cops one evening. They chased him into his backyard, his grandma's backyard. He was calling her to let him in because he was scared. And the cops didn't say they were cops. They came around the corner and they shot him multiple times. Anne Marie Schubert not only determined that it was perfectly fine for the cops to kill him in this way on his own property, but also she went on national news a year later with a press conference assassinating this boy's character effectively. Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, she also, has never, like, there were many demonstrations, direct actions that took place following Stephon Clark being killed in his grandmother's backyard. And she never really had anything to say about how folks were treated in the streets by law enforcement officers. So she just tends to be, she's a Republican, though she has now registered as a no party preference candidate. But if
she re-registered when that came out. Yeah.
Right. But if you were to look at anything that she has ever done, If you were to look at her website, the Shubes for AG dot whatever, they're all
that is the URL, surprisingly.
Yeah, Shubes for AG
whatever
VER
/
why is it just Nyan Cat?
She's, her like issues are tackling rising violent crime, like combating fentanyl, the fentanyl epidemic, prosecuting folks who are committing EDD fraud. That California will lead the nation in forensic innovation and identification, because Anne Marie Schubert believes that she is the reason that the Golden State Killer was arrested and convicted.
That's why I think she has a chance. That one thing, that's a huge feather in her cap. That is only a feather in her cap because the credulous daily newspaper and the TV stations and the radio stations really, really went along with that storyline that it was Anne Marie Schubert who caught the Golden State Killer. And then add to that sort of that red blood justice element that you're talking about, that like, we shouldn't defund the police. We should fund them even more, right? Like we're in a state, in a country where cops are funded more than most of the largest nations in the world. This is aside from our military force. So our cops are funded just as much as some of the biggest military national forces in the world.
And she's endorsed by many of them throughout the state, if you look at her endorsements.
Yeah. And there's some, there's the silly argument that like, they're like, well, crime is on the rise. That's why defunding was wrong. And it's like, we haven't defunded anything yet.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter if, let's say, it's either crime is on the rise because we defunded the police, or it's like, look, crime went down. All this money you giving us is working. Give us some more.
Right.
It doesn't matter at all. And as long as people aren't willing to think critically and like put two and two together about like, it seems like the police have more money than they've ever had, and crime is also higher than it's ever been. Maybe there's another thing that I should be considering. But people that require that, honestly, to be fair, we run in circles where that's kind of base level knowledge. But I think for a lot of people, like the idea that there is not actually a correlation between how many cops there are on the street and how safe you are in your neighborhood is like a really hard thing to get your head around, unfortunately. And it doesn't help that people like Anne Marie Schubert campaign on fear mongering on that, and are like the only way out of crime and all this stuff is strengthening the carceral state. And people are scared. I mean, crime is up. That's like, crime statistics are up nationwide, and even though it's not happening where a lot of the people who will be voting for this live, they still read the news and they get all freaked out about it. And it is, and
the news has always been a
fund the carceral system is a really hard thing to argue against to people who don't think about it all the time.
Yeah. I mean, again, we're trying to undo decades and decades of propaganda, right? And this isn't going to happen overnight. And like, I'm super thankful that like there are some folks in office who refuse cop money, and hopefully there will be more moving on. But right now it's a messaging battle, and it's something that we're just not going to win probably at a lot of city council levels, at a lot of county levels, at the state legislature. It's just, we're not there yet. The silly lib at the B, Jack Oman, wrote a piece trying to take down Scott Jones, the sheriff of Sacramento County, who is running for, I believe, in what's
the
he
third congressional district,
a congressional seat. And even he said, like, we're not going to defund the police anytime soon. And I think he's right, but like, I guess that's where this is right now. It's like, it's a messaging game, but it's also knowing that and knowing how weak, and we should understand, kind of how much power we do or don't have in these movements, knowing how weak the defund or police abolitionist movement is currently in our current state. that does leave in my head open a big chance for Anne Marie, Republican or not, in a Democratic state where 50% of voters are Democrat and 24% are Republican, to win, to beat Rob Bonta.
Well, because all she has to do is like point at crimes, right? Like that's it. That's the whole playbook, is just like, well, what about this terrible crime? Do you want that to keep happening? You know,
her whole thing is upholding the construct of crime that is, you know, capital based, like I work hard for what I have. And it's not like, I mean, she certainly does bring up things like sex offenders, and she talks about wanting to make sure that like children are safer on the streets and all of that. But the way that she talks about it is all just upholding, you know, this like very like conservative construct of crime, where then you have somebody like Bonta who, you know, maybe he's got shit that he needs to work on, but his thing is like talking about bringing in transparency to the carceral system and to the justice system. And he's like, actually, he's shown some of the ways that he is dedicated to doing that. And like understanding that, sort of getting to the root of why there is gun violence. And it's not just like a bunch of, you know, like I would not doubt that Anne Marie Schubert has conversations where she, you know, is just like name calling folks who carry gun, who participate in, I just like can't use my words, or who are arrested for like gun violence, right? Like she would be the like guns equal thugs bullshit, right? Instead of really like trying to get to the root issues of why these whole thing, like why these issues exist in communities, and whether or not Bonta can do those things is like that's not really a discussion that we're having right now. But on their websites you can see like the tone is so different. It's like someone who is interested in people, and then someone who is interested in just like making sure that there are more jails everywhere.
Right, exactly.
And it's more of the same.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And she does have a fighting chance, I think, in a race like this.
Yeah.
And I want to just once more highlight that this is because of the cowardice, or, you know, the blurring of the lines within the Democratic Party, where they want to be just as tough on crime as the Republicans. You know, you look at London Breed in San Francisco, her as mayor saying, oh, we're going to create a state of emergency in the Tenderloin, right? Where people are, you know, on fentanyl and doing heroin, and like, we want to clean up those streets and get rid of all, you know, the madness. This tough on crime stance that, like, really at the end of the day, you know, actually the Chronicle wrote this really long, really interesting piece where they interviewed people from all levels in the Tenderloin, which is historically a district that has had this issue, right? And the piece sort of ends with the whimper, right? That it's like this 90-day push, you know, tough on crime push, it's not going to change anything there. It's not going to change anything there because it doesn't, as to your point, Shannon, and to Flo's point every time we talk about this, it doesn't address the determinants of this poverty, of the drug use, and of the homelessness. And so as long as the capitalist electeds are still in power, this is going to keep happening ad nauseum. Unfortunately, they continue to have the soapboxes they do, which is why I'm so thankful when we actually do get folks into power fighting back, you know, on the dais against this sort of like tough on crime propaganda messaging. It's really important that we do have folks up there changing the narrative, because then that ends up in the paper, then that ends up on TV stations, and then like our, you know, boomer aunts and uncles who aren't already socialists are starting to be like, oh, maybe I should rethink that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I feel like I have a lot to say about the tenderloin stuff, and we don't have time for it, and that takes us into a different conversation. But I do think that just like in general, any these sort of like tough on crime leaders are so incredibly problematic and begin to show. I think one of the things that we find is that it's really easy then to tell who, like the people who, the leadership who are into profit over people, who they really are. And like they begin to show their asses, and we can continue to push back on them. And like people who are doing the work to help, you know, get folks elected into council seats, into county seats, into, you know, all of those seats that lead up to, as Flo says, your next, you know, your city council member then can one day become your attorney general. It's
Attorney General Angelique Ashby.
She would love. You know, it's thanks, Mayor London Breed, for showing us that you don't actually give a shit about people, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Words are hard today.
It's okay. I mean, you know, you work in homeless services day in and day out, emergency services, and you see the effects that kind of draconian approach like London Breed's has on that community.
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime we talk about declaring any sort of state of emergency around issues involving unhoused folks, there has to be some real unpacking and some real deep thought about whether or not that's necessary, because generally it's coming from a place where that state of emergency is really just going to protect capital instead of people.
Yep.
But now, that's a conversation for a show when Skylar's not sitting here.
Thanks, Skylar.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with me just not managing time correctly tonight.
No, we got, you know, we talked a lot in the beginning about AB 1400.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine.
That was a fun talk, actually. I'm glad we did that.
Once again, very sorry, Mickey.
Yes, apologies to our dear friend Mickey, who has to bleep us out for the radio at 103.1 Cuts.
The Cuts
FM.
Speaking of other places that you can access Great Voices content, not only 103. Sorry, Mickey. 103.1 The Cuts.
I hope I got that right. It's been a long time. It's been a long break.
We are really going to owe Mickey a lot of apologies.
It's 103.1 on the radio, and you can also stream it from the website, cutsfm.org.
It sounds right.
If it's not, sorry, Mickey.
Yes, you can do all of those things, and Shannon knows her stuff.
I have a sweatshirt, so...
You do have a sweatshirt. Which is very cool.
My dollars from the
website. It is cutsfm.org, and you can listen to it live. We are on Tuesday nights just after work, and then again Wednesday mornings just before work at 8 a.m. We are on Facebook, Voices River City, Twitter and Instagram at Voices River City. You can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Voices River City. As little as $5 a month, that helps us get our subscriptions to our newspapers so we can tell you what they're talking about, so you don't have to pay way too much. You can, we've got merch, we've got t-shirts, we've got mugs, we've got little stickers. Look at this cute little sticker.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice. You can also
Koozies
find us
coming.
at we got meetups too coming up. We had a nice one not too long ago. We're ramping up the Follows the Money project, which has raised a few hackles recently. And so I'm excited to dive deeper into that. Anything else?
I am looking forward to this Omicron thing. At least let's at least have this wave just kind of go back down so we can have like a get together. And then and then whatever the next variant is will happen after that.
I'm down for that. Yeah. Shannon, thoughts?
Ditto all of that.
Mm-hmm. Still holding out, still strong.
Yep. Good for you.
Yeah.
And you too, Shannon, I guess, huh?
What? Wait, because of no COVID?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Shit. Nope. Haven't had it.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely thought I did a couple
just
times.
Me, huh? Oh, I'm the asshole. Okay. We're all on Twitter. I'm Kempa. YUKNOWKEMPA.
You can find me at Guillotine for You. That's Guillotine, the number 4, YOU. And I promise my presence on Twitter is mostly just me being funny and not depressing.
It's very innocuous and fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get a job for the city and
yeah, all of a sudden the takes got real PG. How about that?
Things just level right out. I am Shan N.D. Stevens, and every day I will be posting how I get Wordle into.
And Dr. Flo is at Flojan, FLOJAUNE. Thank you for listening, everyone. Let's keep folks informed on the next meetup. On the day of publishing this, it's my birthday, so maybe maybe sooner.
Wait, your
later.
birthday's tomorrow?
Yeah, February 1st.
February 1st.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, a week before mine.
Oh man.
February 8th.
Really dropping the ball here.
A week after mine.
Aquarian birthdays.
This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius.
Skylar loves it. Look at him. Look at his face.
I'm really enjoying it.
Harmony and understanding.
I'm going to stop recording.
All right.
All right. Let's stop recording.
Okay. Bye-bye.